you go into the markets and they actually have bins of just water with catfish in there and other fish, and they're like swimming around, and you have to get them with your bag and put them in the bag. And I just remember seeing people with their fish in the bag on like the little conveyor belt to checking out, and it's just flopping around. There's something called bigos, and what they do is they take that cabbage, tons of different types, and what they do is they put it in a pot and they season it, and they like put it outside for maybe like 4 days and let it kind of ferment, and then they put some kielbasa, so some Polish sausage in there, and they cook it up. And you'd think it'd be really gross, but it is amazing. It is really good, obviously depending on who cooks it. We as Americans unfortunately consume a lot of fast food, and over there they do have fast food restaurants, but I very rarely met a Pole that would eat fast food, or a lot of them hadn't ever even had it. So they cook out of their own homes and they make their own Polish food. The winters are very cold and almost bone chilling is the best way to describe it. It feels like when you walk outside, the cold just goes straight to your bones, and you feel like if you're gonna bump your leg or something, that you're just gonna break your leg. It's so cold. I remember one time a man walked past us. He had tears running down his face, and I was wondering why. I was like, I wonder what happened in his life. And my companion said it's because it's so cold that he has those tears kind of running down his face. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I am not a fish person. I very much dislike fish. But in Poland, they eat a lot of fish, especially around Christmas time. They have a thing called Wigilia, and that's the Christmas Eve. And what you do is you eat fish, and they have this fish called sledge. And it is, I don't even know what it is, but it is so gross. And they make you eat it because it's tradition. So there's Malbork Castle, which is kind of in the northern part of Poland near Gdańsk, and it's one of the biggest, I think it is the biggest brick castle in the world, and it's ginormous. It's really, really neat. Also, there's a lot of castles in the south that are either abandoned or just have few people that go to it, and we found a couple of those. In Gdańsk, there's a chapel, and it's called Kapliczka Mariacka, and it is the biggest brick chapel, I guess, Catholic church in the world. They have like a tower that you can hike up, and it's just like a winding staircase to get to the top, and you can see the whole city, and that was really neat. Down south near Krakow, there's salt mines that are a big tourist attraction. So Polish is, in my opinion, one of the hardest languages in the world. One of the things that was really, really challenging was the different endings that they put on nouns and adjectives. There are, I believe, six or seven different cases. So you have to memorize all these different endings for the words. I actually had an opportunity to go to Auschwitz and the concentration camp and see kind of the facilities and watch a film on kind of what happened. And it was really, really sombering to actually be there and to know what went on. And as we walked around, they were telling us how many people slept in these little buildings that they had, and it was just a really, really sad experience. And just because of Poland's history, it kind of shows why the people are the way they are. They're not the most open people up front, but once you actually break down that wall and you get to know them and show them love, they are truly so loving and will do anything for you. And I kind of relate that to the history and what they've been through, just because of World War II and Nazi Germany coming in and destroying a lot of Poland. And they have had a really hard history in there, and they're still growing and still slightly bitter about that. But they're great people, and I love them to death.
one time we were over at the house of a couple. They said, "Hey, would you like some flaki?" And I said, "Sure, that sounds good." I have no idea what that is, but they brought out the soup, and I thought it was good. So I just ate the whole thing, and then later on, I was at a restaurant with another friend who took us out to lunch, and I ordered flaki because I thought, oh, I had that before, it was good. And after I finished the whole bowl of this soup, he said, "Do you realize you just ate intestines?" And I thought, oh my gosh, I thought those were noodles. In Warsaw, there's a great museum. It's called the Uprising Museum. The Warsaw Uprising was in the middle of World War II, actually towards the end of World War II, when the Poles kind of went against the Nazis right before the Russians invaded. There's a lot of heroic things that happened. It's a neat museum. Most people name their children Polish names. There might even be some sort of like a list. I don't know. But you meet a lot of like similar names, and they're often names of saints or other like Christian or Catholic figures. Like there's Andrews and Luke's and Matthews and John's, and those versions in Polish are like Andrew is Andrzej, Matthew is Mateusz, Luke is Łukasz, John is Jan. Women's names also come from the Bible, like you'll meet Magdalena's or Maria. Maria is it's a kind of a sacred name for a lot of Polish Catholics, and they don't say it as casually as we might.
You have Wrocław and you have Krakow. Those are two of the most beautiful cities that I've mentioned that I think are among the most beautiful. Both are very old, more than 1,000 years old. In Krakow, so they've got a chapel there, a cathedral, and a tall tower in it. And every day, right now, still they'll have someone. I think it's once an hour or maybe every 15 minutes. But either way, they get up and they start to play a song on a trumpet. And they'll start playing the song, and they'll get partway through the song, and it just stops abruptly. And they do that every single day still. And it's kind of cool. The story behind it is they had one of the invading armies sneaking into the city, trying to attack the city. And this person normally would get up and, announce the time by trumpeting. And nobody knew that they were there yet. But as he was trumpeting, one of the archers from the opposing army shot him and killed him. And so his music got cut off immediately. And so instantly everyone in the city was like, what's going on? And so it kind of alerted them and let them know, and they were able to, retreat really quickly and like put their defenses together and fight this invading army. I believe they were Tatars, or the people invading. But either way, they to this day remember that trumpeter saved so many lives and helped save the city because of just doing his duty, and unfortunately dying for it. But they still celebrate that tradition today. Krakow is interesting because it's a lot closer to where the fighting was on the Eastern Front with the Russians. And so it's got a lot of beautiful castles, cathedrals, just artistic things that are over 1,000 years old. And he had placed explosives, Hitler and his troops, underneath all of these areas. He'd kept them as his personal, little resort town where he had his own castle and things like that. But he'd placed explosives where the goal was, if they were going to be taken by the opposing troops, he'd just level the city. And again, there'd be another Polish city lost. And thankfully, they got a little bit too comfortable down there as well. And the advancing troops from Russia, when they did come in, they fought them out so quickly that they weren't able to detonate or destroy the city. And so those explosives and things were found. They were able to be carefully removed. And so the city was preserved, even though it was Hitler's intention to destroy and level the city. And so there's a lot of things where Poles look at it as like miracles, that their cities and their places that are sacred to them, that are important to their national history, have survived almost just by chance, as it were. But they often feel like it was a lot more than that.